Hi everyone, I hope you can all hear me. I hope you found the video really useful about choosing a course. Um, I've got a few questions that have been sent through, so what I'm going to try and do is work my way through each of the questions in sort of the order that they came through to me, and try and answer them as best I can. So the first question that I've got through is from John, and John has asked, how would you advise a young person who has no idea at all what they want to do? Um, I will say first and foremost that this is quite common, particularly amongst year 12 and year 13 students that we speak to. There are quite a few students who come to us and know exactly what they want to do, but you know, at least 50%, 60% maybe students or more come to us and they're not really sure about what they want to do in the future. And therefore, also choosing a course might be quite difficult. The advice that I would give, particularly to those students, and you know, I sort of say this quite often, um, is to sort of take the time thinking about what they want to do, particularly if they're wanting to go to university and potentially spend 3, possibly 4+ years at university studying something, is to really think and consider what it is that they want to do in the future and whether a degree is for them, whether it's a necessity for them for their future career path. But what I would say, if they're thinking about what they want to do in the future, is just to look at the kind of subjects that they're studying at school. Which subjects do they really enjoy? Which ones, you know, which lessons do they enjoy? Which ones are they really keen and performing the best at? That might coincide with some of their interests that they have outside of school, things that they like doing at home in the spare time. Um, because quite often, you know, and we say to students, ideally you want to do something you enjoy doing, and if you can get a job or a career doing something you absolutely love doing, it's the best job in the world, and it's probably not even going to be a job. So if they're picking something in their spare time that they enjoy doing, if they can sort of forge a job or career out of that, then great, and that's probably a good starting point. Just as an example, all the way through school and even continuing now, I've always been very passionate about sport. I always knew that I wanted to do something in sport, but it was very clear that whatever it was that I wanted to do would involve sport at some stage. So when I actually came to choose my degree, I chose sport management because it combined sport and it obviously combined business as well, which I was also interested in. So I kind of picked a degree that I knew I was going to be interested in, I was very passionate about. Wasn't really sure what that was going to lead on to afterwards, but I knew that by studying that, I would be very keen and enthusiastic about that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I did, and it did work out quite well because I spent quite a few years working in a leisure centre in management, and then obviously progressed into teaching after that. And sort of career paths opened up for me just because I kind of followed the passions that I'd got in choosing the course. The next question that I've got is from Thomas, and Thomas has sent through two, so I'm going to try and combine both the answer for both of these in one. So he's asked, would you recommend doing a placement year, and would a student with placement experience have an advantage over a student without when joining the job market for the first time? Yes, they would. If I look at it from a sort of employer's point of view, having sort of looked through various applications from people that have applied for jobs where I've been interviewing, I would always look for people that have probably got more experience where possible. So if a student has an opportunity to take a placement year, I would probably recommend that. It doesn't just mean that they're going to gain more experience in that particular area. For example, students that go on placement years from our university, quite often they might go abroad. So they're sampling different cultures, different lifestyles, studying abroad as part of that placement year. So they are gaining lots of independent skills and things like that during their placement year. It's not just about on the job experience. Having said that, by gaining that year's worth of work experience, quite often it is with a sort of high profile employer, gaining lots of skills and sort of knowledge about that job. So it can sort of help with future prospects. Some students who take a placement year might be more employable at the end of it, but they also might get a job offer from that particular employer if they sort of perform well during their placement year. So I definitely recommend, if possible, and if it suits them on an individual basis, to do a placement year. It's not always applicable to every course, but the vast majority of courses that we offer at the University of Sheffield do offer placement years or placement blocks during the course. The next one I've got is from Ellis. Would you recommend choosing your university or college first, or the course you want to study? There's not really a sort of a right way of answering that one. Again, it comes down to individual circumstances and preferences. What I would suggest to students is, if they're thinking about the course that they want to study, some students might think, I know exactly what course I want to study, but then look at what careers it might lead on to. Other students might look at the career that they want to do and then find what course would get them into that job or career. Once they've kind of chosen that course, it may be then about studying at a different institution and looking at where they might want to study that particular course. But then there's lots of things involved in that decision. So for some students, they might want, the solely might want to stay close to home. They might not want to move away. So that might dictate where they study at university. Others, obviously, the opposite, might want to move away. So that's a decision they need to make. They might also want to look at the type of course that they want to study. But for example, I was very keen on doing coursework and practical based work. So I chose to stay quite local, but luckily by studying in Sheffield, the course that I chose had very few exams, which I know, speaking to some students, they aren't as keen on exams. But if that's the preference of the student, that might again dictate as to which university they want to go to. So it does kind of go hand in hand. If I had to choose, it probably would be look at the course first, because some students might pick a certain university and think, oh, that looks really nice, or that city's really nice, but they may not offer the exact course that suits them. So yeah, probably course first. Also from Ellis, how late can you leave it before deciding on a course? I suppose you could leave it probably right up until the deadline. The UCAS deadline is in January 15th, I believe. The actual courses that you can put on there, obviously you can apply for up to 5 courses on there, send that off in January. Then it obviously takes a couple of months for, or maybe less than that now, maybe 6 weeks or so, for institutions to reply and give us offers out. So let's, for example, say that all 5 have come back with conditional offers. There's then an additional period of at least 6 weeks, I think it is, before the student themselves has to decide on a course. So you could probably think it may be until possibly March before a student has to decide for definite which is their firm choice and which is their insurance choice. So there's quite a bit of time yet. Again, between now and then, lots of things could change. They may decide that they want to study at a certain university rather than another one. Obviously, with the current situation, possibly later on in the year, there might be opportunity to actually visit some of these towns and cities face to face and actually see what they're like. So again, that might help a student decide which course they want to do. So yeah, it's not an imminent decision, but what I would say is, if a student's putting 5 different choices down on the UCAS form, they should be quite happy to go to any of those 5 choices. And obviously they can still, once they've put them on the form and sent that off, there's still a bit of time to decide and narrow it down even further. Another question from Alice: what if a student is split between 2 courses, particularly ones that are completely different? Do you have to decide which one you want to study? Yes, there will become a point where a student does have to decide which one. There's possibly an opportunity further down the line to change after they get the results, but it's very risky as to whether there's going to be places left on the other course. If a student has received an offer, essentially an institution saying, yep, there's a place here for you, providing you meet those grades and that conditional offer that we've given you, that may happen for 2 different courses that they're interested in. There will become a date where a student does have to decide it's going to be this one or that one. So yeah, and it's probably going to be around March time, I would imagine. Okay, I've got a question from Jessica. Do you have any tips for picking a course now that may have more jobs available once you finish? That's a tough question. The thing with, I suppose, the job market now, we're in a very sort of difficult situation at the moment, as I'm sure people are aware. What I would say is to look on websites like Prospects, speak to careers advisors. There's lots of sort of other sources of information that can sort of predict the sort of areas of growth really around a particular area of the country. It's very hard to predict in sort of I suppose in the next 6 months what the job market's going to look like. I suppose as an eternal optimist, I'm looking forward beyond the next 6 months and thinking that once we do come out of lockdown and the vaccines are widely available, that things will gradually get back to normal and the economy will pick up and jobs will be available for young people again. It's very hard to sort of give out any tips for picking courses that might have more jobs available. I suppose you could look at courses where there are always going to be a job market at the end of it. So there's always going to be a requirement for teachers, nurses, doctors. I suppose courses that are quite broad in the skills that they give out. So management courses, because they can sort of lead into all different kinds of areas. It's very difficult to sort of answer that specifically, but I would probably recommend that for a student that was looking at that now and thinking what jobs are going to be available, that they kind of spend quite a bit of time doing a bit of research and looking at growth areas, because the situation that we're in at the moment is quite hard to predict anything for the next sort of year or two, I would say. Let's have a look. What else have we got? Okay, so we've got a question from Jonathan. My child wants to do an art degree, but I'm really worried it won't lead to a solid job. Should I encourage him to go and do a qualification that would create more opportunities for a job career, i.e. accountancy? I think this is a question we do get quite a lot from parents. And I am going to sit on the fence a little bit, and I'm not going to try and anger parents too much because I'm a parent myself. But what I would say is, like I kind of said right at the beginning about choosing courses, I think for the young person, they should follow the sort of career path that they're really interested in, and particularly if it's art, because I would imagine if they're interested in art, they're very sort of creative. They're probably wanting to do something along those lines, and you're probably thinking along lines that there's probably not as many jobs and careers in art. But I think if someone did choose to study something, for example, accountancy for a few years, it may sort of lead on to a solid job and a decent career and a decent salary, but maybe that person might not necessarily enjoy it as much. There are possibilities going down the art route that might not seem obvious at the start. So for example, just doing an art degree doesn't mean they're just going to sit and paint and try and sell paintings for a living. There's obviously career paths such as graphic designers, possibly moving into more creative industries like marketing, that kind of thing. So it's worthwhile looking into, but I would always recommend to a student that they sort of follow their passion and main interests, and try and carve out a job or career in that area, purely because they're going to enjoy it a lot more. And if they do manage to find a job and career and a decent salary working in that area, it's probably something they're going to do for the rest of their lives. Okay, so we've got a question from John. Can you tell us more about dual honours or combined degrees? Yeah. So for some students, they may not just be interested in one particular degree, a single honours degree. Some students may choose a combined honours degree or a dual honours degree, as they're sometimes known. This means that a student can sort of study two subjects at the same time. So essentially they're doing 50% of one course, 50% of another. They will choose modules for each individual part of the course that suits them. And what it means is that they can sort of, if they've got two particular passions, they can study two separate subjects, and they will come out with a qualification that is a dual honours degree. They will still study it over the same period of time. So a sort of normal degree would be about 3 years, possibly 4 years. The dual honours degree would be exactly the same. They would just do sort of 50% of the course around one subject, 50% around the other. And it's a good way for a student that's really torn between two courses to do this. Quite often, some courses may involve languages. So if a student's, for example, I've got some friends that have studied law, but they may have done some Spanish or French alongside that. So that's a good option for some students. And it can help as well a little bit to sort of increase their employability at the end of it, because they may not be exactly sure what kind of career path they want to go down. By studying 2 subjects, it may mean that they're sort of opening 2 career paths. So by the end of the degree, they may favour one subject over the other and think, actually, after studying this for 3-4 years, I'm a bit more passionate about one than the other, and they may seek to go down one path rather than the other. Okay, so we've got a question from Emily. Are employers flexible on course qualifications, or do they require specific qualifications? This does really depend on the type of qualifications that students are studying and the type of careers that they do want to go in. So, for example, if it's sort of going into nursing or those kind of careers, then there is specific qualifications that they will need to take. For example, another obvious one is if you want to be a dentist, they need to study dentistry. Other types of employers may not necessarily specify the certain qualifications that you need. So, like I've already mentioned, things like management qualifications are quite broad, and you can sort of pick different modules to sort of tailor your study. Other jobs and careers may not. They may just specify a degree qualification and a certain classification of degree. So they may want a first, or they may want a higher second. Some other employers may specify that they just want a degree plus some experience. So it does really depend on which kind of job or career that young person's going into as to what kind of qualifications they require. And like I mentioned a little while ago, that some students may choose to look at the jobs and careers that really interest them, and then look at what qualifications they need to get into that particular job or career, because some might be very specific, some might be quite generic. And then they may choose their degree qualification based on that. So that's always worthwhile looking into. Let's have a look. So the next one I've got is from Jonathan. I'm interested in a course in historic building conservation. I can only find a master's qualification. What do I do if there isn't a BA course on the exact topic that I'm interested in? That's quite a good question. It is something that we do find from time to time, that some people have a sort of very specific interest and want to study that. You may find that, particularly at sort of degree level, at undergrad level, that some degree qualifications are quite broad. They may have individual modules around certain things like that, but not necessarily a full course. You may find that once it sort of gets to master's level, things do narrow down quite a bit, and maybe, like you say in the question, that you may find exactly what you want at master's level, but maybe not at sort of undergrad level. So that is quite common, and it's particularly because obviously for any university around the country, there just may not be enough demand for an undergraduate course for something very specific. So you do tend to find that it's more common at master's level for a specific course like that. I mean, obviously we're sort of currently in lockdown, and then obviously restrictions around the country. And what I would say to any student that's thinking about applying or looking at any particular course is really to do the research. Do the research around the course, think about what it is that they want to do, research around the potential universities that they want to do. Lots of universities, including ours, are doing virtual open days at the moment, which is a great opportunity to sort of go and look at facilities online. It's not as ideal as doing things face to face, but I suppose in the world we're living in over the next couple of months, it's probably better than nothing. Look at the facilities. You get to speak to academics online, student ambassadors, people that are actually studying the course that students might be interested in. Ask them about their experiences, what modules they're studying, what they're planning on doing afterwards, that kind of thing. And then let's all cross our fingers that in a few months' time we can also go out and sort of do face-to-face open days again. But what I would say is, whether it's virtual or face-to-face, to actually spend a bit of time doing research and look around the towns and cities that you potentially want to study in. So there's lots of things, lots of information online. So if anybody wants to visit our website, there's lots of things on there. We're just currently developing a different sort of virtual tour where some of our current members of the team will be going around campus with sort of live headsets on, so you'll be able to follow them as they're sort of walking around and asking them questions as they're doing a sort of live tour. So in lieu of actually being there in person, it will sort of be the next best thing, really. So as you can sort of see the facilities and they're telling you about the facilities, you'll be able to ask them questions about what's in a particular room, or a particular subject, anything like that. Okay, so I've not got any more questions through. So if you want to go back to the homepage, sort of ready for the next event, which I believe is starting at 7 o'clock, and then you should be good to go for the next one. But thanks for attending. Hopefully that's been really useful for you. I'll see you again soon. Thank you.